Hello, hello, hello.
Hello, Chris. Aaron's here.
Let me grab my headphones. Putting on our vests, huh? Is this what we get this year?
This is Winter Mountaineering School.
Yeah, right. You're looking at it. How are you doing?
Doing all right.
No
Doing all right.
snowshoeing today?
What's that?
No snowshoeing today?
No, I had to work today, but I'm done till the 4th now.
Nice.
For some reason, I had all this vacation time I had to use up by the end of the year. I don't know why.
Yeah, that's a problem that like I read I think it was a New York Times article talking about how like across the country, like people have massive companies are dealing with this problem of having people with too much vacation time because they didn't take it to go anywhere this year. Seems strange that, yeah, that's the way it goes. I mean, I guess if you're home, you're like, I'll take the paycheck, I'll do the work, have something to do.
Absolutely. Well, at the beginning, we were shifting everybody to home. I work with computers, so
I see.
we were a little busy.
All right, let me see if I can get this to share my screen.
Okay.
All right, so you're looking at my screen now?
Yep, I can see the screen. It's on what do I pack slide.
Yep. And if I present that, now you're looking at, it's full screen, but you still see picture in picture with us?
Yep.
Sweet. So then we'll do it like this.
A little bit of the Brady Bunch thing going on.
Yeah, great. That'll be the way we'll do the party.
Ah, there's Jeremy.
I see we've got 21 participants.
You been getting out at all?
Maybe skiing next week.
Oh, where are you going?
Vermont. All right, well, it's 8 o'clock. I see, it looks like we got a good number of attendees in. Hello, Jeremy. Using Jeremy's login there. All right, well, let's see, we have 20 participants.
I see
And
20.
we'll give it just,
yeah, 20 plus us. Yeah, there we go.
Mhm.
I think it's still clicking up a little bit.
Yeah, we'll give it a few more minutes.
Yeah.
Welcome, everybody. Can't hear you there, Rich. But we can see you gesturing.
I thought Jeremy was using Rich's picture to mess with us.
To fool with us.
Yes.
It looks like we've got a couple more people coming in, and we'll get started in just a couple minutes here.
Hello.
Hello.
There we
now
go.
We can hear you.
Hey, there we go. Sorry,
Hey,
I'm
Rich.
not in my usual home studio, kind of working from the field today.
It's amazing how after a year of living on Zoom, we can still be juggling things.
Well, yeah, actually, I just squeaked in here. I was supposed to be earlier and run like the preview slideshow of all the nice photos and do all
Oh,
kinds of.
nice.
I just squeaked in on time after a pretty long drive, so I'm just glad to be here.
Perfect.
So
well, looks like we're almost at 30. So
is that
Great.
Our registered capacity?
oh no, we're full.
Oh, nice. So yeah, we'll give them a couple minutes, and then let's say maybe we'll totally kick things off at like, I don't know, like 8:05 or something, just to make sure everyone
Yeah.
gets in who's in.
That's great. That's 3 minutes. Run a tight ship around here.
That's
Absolutely.
right.
Yeah. So
Well,
go ahead, Aaron.
I don't know about you guys, but we're having a very sad day today because it's about 40 degrees right now and raining and destroying our base.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was ice in North Carolina up until like, yesterday or today or something.
Hmm.
It was very sad.
Oh, I was skiing. I had like 5 parks I skied over my vacation time, and now it's just turning into mush.
Yeah, it was. It's been peculiar so far, for sure. A major avalanche in the Catskills that was just mind blowing.
Really?
Yeah, Bel Air slid because they got, I don't know what we got, a couple of feet of snow, and then like 2 days later we got like 8-9 inches of rain, and it just super soaked the loaded the slope. It was only like a 20-degree slope, but it still slid, and nobody was around. It just ruined their lodge.
Oh, I saw those pictures.
Yeah, demolished it. Very strange winter.
Okay. Well,
But Adirondacks looks good. I've been seeing the pictures. People climbing some ice, getting out, doing stuff. It's I've got my eye on it. Maybe in the next couple of weeks, get up there myself. And so there's adventure to be had if you're going out safe. People within your own bubble, and planning for a good trip. So today we're gonna talk. Aaron and myself are going to talk about meal planning and for winter hiking and backpacking. And Rich is here with us, and it looks like
yeah.
Benjamin as well.
Yeah, let's get this kicked off a little bit. I don't know why it says I'm Jeremy. I guess I accidentally stole his invite, but he's going to be here, I think, during the second half.
Great.
But yeah, so welcome everyone to our virtual winter mountaineering school. I'm Richard Murray. I'm the assistant director this year. And our director, Jeremy, like I said, he'll be joining us a little bit later. And, like you've been hearing in the background chatter, tonight is meal planning for winter hiking and backpacking. And yeah, so for those of you who don't know, a lot about who we are and what we do, we are Winter Mountaineering School. We are sponsored by the Adirondack Mountain Club, which is probably how you found this and certainly how you did your registration and all of that. And we are a group of volunteers who just like getting outside in the winter enough that we want to pass it on to other people in a formalized structure. So that's kind of what we do under normal, in precedented times, let's say. We would have an in-person program that lasts between 4 and 5 or 6 days, depending on the program that you sign up for. That will be live in Lake Placid, based out of Heart Lake by the Adirondack Lodge, or in the Johns Brook Lodge. Again, depending on the program. And those programs kind of, it deals with a lot of the same subject matter that you can find in these presentations, but it's all very hands-on group learning, the traditional way. And it's a great program. I highly recommend that anyone who's interested, come on board next year when we're presumably going to be back live. And yeah, that's about it. We you know kind of get you the hard skills that you need to go out into the winter in the Northeast safely. And then at least once or twice during your adventure with us, we get a 4,000 footer, or at least make an attempt. Right? We don't always, getting to the top is optional. Getting home is mandatory. Right? That sort of thing. So yeah, I've kind of rambled on enough. It's 6 minutes after. I don't want to chew into these guys' time anymore. Without any further delay, I will present Aaron and Christopher for meal planning for winter hiking and backpacking.
Thank you, Rich. All right, well, we're going to jump right in, and we'll have time for some questions at the end if people want to throw things in the chat, and we'll see if we can answer some questions for people. And it's always fun to hear what people like, and everybody's got their own tastes and their own opinions on some of what they're going to pack. So we'll get to share some of that as well. So I guess I would just start by saying, there's a bunch of amazing things about being out in the winter adventuring, and we look forward to all of those things, like snowshoeing and putting our crampons on and pitching our tents in the snow. But when you're out there, eating is really near the top of the list for things that you're going to want to be doing. So it's important to plan for that properly. So we think of it as fueling your adventure. You are the fire. You're the one with the stoke, and you're going to get out there, but you need fuel. You need food and water to keep that engine in you burning, and that's really how you stay warm out there. There isn't a heater. There isn't, there aren't enough little hand warmers in the world to keep you warm on your adventure. You need to keep the engine inside burning brightly. So we like to think of water as the spark, the mechanism that's going to start the fire. Without water, you really aren't, your digestive processes aren't working, and you're not going to have a fire. The need to consume water goes up with winter activities. You're doing increased activity. We're out there, whether it's snowshoeing, even on flat ground, or you're breaking trail, hip deep in the snow, whatever it is, it's going to take more energy than just sitting around watching TV. You've got dry backpacking food. You're going to have to add water to it. It's dehydrated. A lot of liquid needs to be added to that. You're not getting, juicy fruits and vegetables like you do at home. There's cold, dry air. You actually, a lot of water is lost through your respiration. And that's going to all lead you to drinking more water. We assume that you're going to roughly consume water between 2 and 5 quarts per person per day. That really changes radically based on your activity, how much you're exerting yourself throughout the day. We want to just make sure as you do that your body has this built-in sensor to let you know how you're doing with your dehydration. So keep a look out at your urine when you use the restroom. Light yellow, straw colored, you know what it's supposed to look like. It's not supposed to look different. It's not supposed to look darker. Keep it light while you're in the backcountry. So if you take that analogy on, you've got the spark, you've got the tinder. If you've built a fire before, you've got tinder, kindling, and logs to really build a fire. There are parts of it that catch faster. There are parts of it that build that fire and turn it into a fire that lasts. And then there are the parts, the logs, that burn long over long time. So the tinder, these are your fast carbohydrates. They're the easiest foods our body can convert right into energy. The fastest of which is just sugar, right? So if you think of, honey in your tea, those kinds of things, that's really fast carbohydrates. That's really going to start that fire up, but it's not going to last long. These carbs, we're looking at making the bulk of your calories consumed 50%. up to 70%. That really sort of depends on how your body processes these things. If you're a person who runs regularly and your body is trained to burn fats, maybe you don't want to be eating 70% carbs. But if you're normally eating a lot of carbs, you're going to probably increase the amount of carbs as you go out. So 50 to 70%. That really sort of depends on what types of foods you like to eat. Your body does well with, because you want to keep your GI system feeling good. Carbs can be from cereals, whole grains, pastas, rice, potatoes, bread, crackers, granola, dried fruit, hot cocoa, jello, sport gels, powdered drink mixes. We say jello in there. It's not like you're making, frozen jiggly jello. Those packets that you buy, you can look, some of them have sugar already added with them. That's the one that you want, not the one that doesn't have any sugar. And those are actually a typical product used by search and rescue. If you're going to come across somebody, you've got some hot water and one of those jello packs with that has all the sugar in it, that's going to give some warm liquids, going to give a lot of super fast carbs, really revive people and help turn their engine back on inside. So that's the tinder. That's how we get that fire going. Kindling and logs, so proteins and fats, continuing that analogy. We want to get that fire burning strong and long. Protein requirements are really consistent regardless of physical activity. So protein, if you have more of it, if you're like, oh, I'm just gonna protein out and eat tons and tons of protein, that really just, you're gonna burn what you're gonna burn, and then the rest of it gets stored as fats. So fats pack more energy than carbs or protein, and are digested slower to sustain the fire longer. Foods high in protein and fats, like cheese, beans, milk, jerky, salami, nuts and seeds, peanut butter, butter, any of those things. That's the kind of stuff that we're looking at in that proteins and fats. This is going to make up, 15 to 25% each. So even in the front country, might looking at 50% carbs, 25% protein, 25% fats. That might be something that you bring into the back country, or you make that slight shift a little bit extra on the carbs. So that's sort of the analogy of building a fire and keeping that fire burning strong and long inside of you. In terms of how much you need, most people burn around 1,500 to 2,000 calories per day sitting on the couch. Everybody's different. However much muscle you have, how tall you are, all of those things go into how much your resting metabolism is going to burn. But you factor in winter activities like skiing, snowshoeing, that could increase your consumption by 300 to 1,000 calories per hour, depending on the rate of travel, elevation, snow conditions, like we mentioned before, breaking trail, a whole lot harder than walking on flat ground without breaking trail. Radical difference in how much calories you're going to burn, but you really got to be ready for what the conditions are going to be wherever you're going. So we're planning for a little bit of higher usage. In a full day of winter backpacking per person, you could be burning 3,000 to 6,000 calories per day. So if you're thinking about 2,000 calories, 2,500 calories is a normal day, where you might do a little bit of exercise at home, but pretty basic, and then doubling that when you're out in the backcountry. So what do you pack? You don't pack calories, you pack stuff. So how do we do that? You factor in 2 pounds per person per day, roughly. That's always a nice thing, when you got to fit everything into your backpack. So you're going to have one stuff sack. That's usually going to get hung so you don't get little creatures getting in there. We don't have to worry about bears in the winter, but there are things that will get into your food. So we still like to hang our food. You got a stuff sack that's got about 2 pounds per person per day, roughly. And you're going to see that as a chunk of weight that you're going to be carrying into the backcountry. Foods that you'll want to eat. You're gonna need that fire going. And so you're gonna want to have things that you enjoy. We want to have a good time while we're out there. It's one of the things that we can control. So consider ready to eat foods, foods that can be consumed on the go. Good old raisin and peanuts, jerky, cheese cubes, cutting those things up beforehand. You know, you don't want to get out there into the backcountry and one, you don't have a cutting board and things are just a little bit clumsier out there. But two, you know, things can be frozen. Things can be really hard. And, you know, pre-cutting those things up, slices of salami or cheese cubes really helps. You got a little Ziploc bag with cubed up salami and cheese cubes. You can pop a couple of those in your mouth, even if they are cold. You know, you can keep them on your body to keep them warm, but you can keep them, you know, you pop a couple of them in your mouth, it's fine versus trying to cut into those things. So for backpacking meals, heat and eat is a must. We don't, at the winter school, we don't do cooking, like, you know, where there's going to be dishes to wash afterwards. We recommend that you don't either. We're going to be doing a lot of boiling of water, and you want to be able to put some boiling water in with your food to have dinner. So whether those are freeze-dried and dehydrated meals, you know, you use the Ziploc freezer bags, you can add boiling water to those. Those are strong enough for it. Whether you're making things at home, Aaron's going to get into some of that here in just a minute. But we're looking at two types of food that we're packing. One is on-the-go food, stuff that you can put in your pockets and keep on you like a squirrel. You're just going to have it everywhere. You can reach in and grab a little bit. You're going to be on the go, spending a lot of energy throughout the day. Those are things that you're going to want to reach in and get. And then heat and eat, the pour boiling water and have a meal for breakfast, oatmeals, dinner, and Aaron will talk about some of the options that. All right, so I'll do one more here and then turn it over to Aaron. So how do you eat all this stuff? Better conditioned you are, the more efficient your fire will burn. We always say everybody wishes they had exercised more, trained a little bit more before they get to winter school. The mountains are tough, and you know, the fun thing about them is every bit of extra energy that you have, they can take it. You know, there's always a little bit more to do, and so if you're conditioned well and trained up, you're going to have a lot of adventure out there, but you're also going to have an efficient engine, and so the more things that it's a little bit easier on you. You can just a hotter fire, you can throw just about anything into it. So eat mainly carbs during physical activity, suggested intake throughout the day. Those are the things that you want to like reach into your pockets and grab. And that's why, you know, the good old raisins and peanuts or, you know, the granola, those kinds of things that we can grab are great. And then proteins and fats towards the end of the day to replenish calorie consumption. So when you're going to bed at night, you're going to want to throw a log on the fire, right? And remember, the logs are fats. So having a dinner that has extra protein and fat in it is going to get that fire going real well before you get into your sleeping bag and have to make it all the way through the night. And that's a good plan as you look to your dinner. How do you throw in a little bit of extra fat, whether that's butter or whatever that is, so that you're going to have a nice rich meal that you're going to go to sleep with. All right, Aaron.
So you basically have, moving my microphone slightly. So you basically have 3 meals that you're going to enjoy. The first one, when you get up, you're going to want to really get the carbohydrates going. Put some proteins in there, put some fats in there, and you know, you can definitely use things that are off the shelf, or you can use things that are more commercially prepared meals. A couple of things that I like to do is to use just standard oatmeal or some 7-grain cereal, and then powdered peanut butter and powdered or dried fruits, dried fruits and that kind of stuff in there. And you can basically make a really good oatmeal if you like oatmeal. Some people don't like oatmeal. Um, Eggs, potatoes, all that kind of stuff. Your grand slam type meal. That stuff actually dehydrates really, really well as long as you if you use a dehydrator, as long as you don't have too many fats on the outside of it, it'll actually get quite well dehydrated. And then another thing I like to use also is the is couscous. Easy off the shelf, simple to buy, and just put the types of spices and dried fruit and that type of thing to your liking. But those fruits, a little bit of sugar, the carbohydrates, and some of those proteins will definitely help you get you up in the morning. This is something where you're going to want to get after you get out of the tent. There's no heat source that's out there, so a nice hot meal and having some stuff to drink is also going to help you out a lot. For those of you who are coffee drinkers, getting in the field and then deciding that you're not going to drink coffee that day is a really, really bad idea because the caffeine that your body may be used to seeing in the morning can give you quite the headache during the day. Consuming more water can help with that headache, but making sure that you have some of that caffeine available is a good idea. One of the tricks that I like to use is there's a Cliff Bar that comes with caffeine in it. So just by breaking up that Cliff Bar and having that along with my breakfast gives me that little caffeine jolt that keeps the headache at bay. The cold and stuff usually wakes me up enough in the Adirondacks, so that works out okay. Really, the next meal that you're going to have ends basically when you clean up from breakfast and put your backpacks on, and then it's going to be for the rest of the day until we get back to camp. You're really going to want to have things that are simple to consume, things that meet your tastes and don't have potential adverse consequences. Your people downwind of you will appreciate that quite a bit. You also don't want to feel bad in the field. So use things that you're comfortable eating normally. Don't try this brand new spicy food or this brand new vegetable that you've never tried before for the first time out in the middle of the woods, because things may not go well for you. If you are making any of your own foods, it's super important normally, but your hygiene in the kitchen, when you create the foods, when you package the foods and everything else, hygiene is super important. So you want to really be careful with that, because a bout of food poisoning in the backcountry, 10 miles from the car, it's not necessarily a good time. So you want to try to avoid that also. But make sure that your meals, this moving feast that we're going to have, is no preparation, easy to consume, works with your body and works with your taste buds, has some variety to it. If you just bring gorp and that's all you have for a 5-day trip, you may get a little sick of gorp and you may want other things. So, look around and see what works for you, and make sure it is a good combination of both short and long-term energy sources. So not all M&Ms. Got to get the peanut M&Ms in there too. So some of the things that we talk about for the moving feast. Lunch starts right after breakfast. A nice mix of a trail mix is always great. I'm sure everybody has their own way of doing this. One of the things that I like to do is get some of the higher protein, higher quality cereals and add those into the trail mix, so that you have those a little bit longer burning carbohydrates, not just the quick ones, and good variety of nuts and those types of things in there. So you're not just eating sugar, of course. And then I do what I call the unfrozen sandwich. If you make a sandwich and you put it in your pack and you're out there for 3 days, you're going to have a hard piece of wood that you're trying to eat that used to be in the sandwich. But if you take that same sandwich and you just rip it up into its subcomponents, sausage, cheese, whole wheat pita, I actually smear mustard on the pita before I rip it up, and all that stuff does freeze, but it's in a little package, and it's in a sandwich bag where I can easily deal with it. But it's also in small pieces, so I can put it in my mouth, let the pieces thaw out a little bit, and eat them with a lot of comfort, as opposed to trying to gnaw off of a large piece of sausage or a totally frozen sandwich. Now, for those of you who really want to control your food for a lot of different reasons, from taste to the ingredients that go into it, controlling, spice level, and even controlling the volume level. If you're not a big eater and you get one of those commercial meal packets that that's for two, you might have extra stuff that you're hiking out of the woods. Although having extra food at the end is not necessarily the worst thing, and most people eat all their dinners when they're out. But you can control your own food by making it yourself. And I actually really enjoy doing this as part of my preparations for trips. It helps me extend the trip, and it helps me think about the trip longer when I'm getting ready for it as I'm making my meals. So a basic food processor is about $40. It should have a fan. If it's temperature controlled and if it's square, you're going to like it a little bit better. But honestly, I've owned 3 of them in my 30 years of backpacking and hiking and stuff. And I've never owned a square one, and I've never owned one with a temperature control. They work just fine as long as you get a fan. The first one I had didn't have a fan, and I had a lot of problems with potentially getting mold buildup in there because of the dehydration process wasn't expelling enough of the moisture quick enough. But with that, some parchment paper and some needlepoint plastic, you can pretty much dehydrate anything that you want to, as long as you keep things in small pieces and you keep the fats to a minimum within what you're dehydrating. You can pretty much take the meals you normally eat and dehydrate them, rehydrate them in the field, and enjoy them. There's a lot of store options where you can mix and match to make uh, different meals. Lots of people that go out simply go out with canned chicken taken out of the can because it freezes inside the can when you're out. Canned chicken and instant potatoes and some gravy packets, and you can make a pretty decent meal. A little bit like Thanksgiving. It's not totally balanced, but you're only out there a couple of days potentially, and it's not going to kill you. Speaking of things that'll kill you, there's Mountain House and Coleman and Backpackers Pant. No, I'm just kidding. Those things are fine. The commercial options, if you like them, they can definitely be useful. They are quite expensive. Um, Equipping yourself for 3 days in the mountains with those commercial meals, you can buy a dehydrator and have it for 10 years. So it's kind of what you choose to do. Hawk Vittles is also another good brand that's out there, which is my personal favorite for the commercial meals. So kind of a sample 4-day plan we put up here. It has variety. It's got your snacks. It's got your dinners, your breakfasts. The instant coffee packets from Starbucks are also good that you can use. Lots of different things that you can grab. If you do the pizza bites thing, make sure you cook them first because they're not cooked initially. But if you cook them, they're pretty decent out in the field. And then it says freezer bag meals, freezer bag chicken con carne there. That's simply putting all of the ingredients that you'll rehydrate into a freezer bag and a cozy to keep it warm, and using that to rehydrate. We don't like to do dishes in the field. Everything goes into a freezer bag. Boil those. You have the boiled water put in there, and you allow it to rehydrate. So, and you'll notice that there's always some teas, jellos, those hot drinks, the things to encourage you to consume more liquids. I try to drink when I first get up. I try to drink at least 2 quarts before I leave camp in the morning. I try to drink 2 quarts during my hike, during the day or more, and I try to drink 2 quarts at night. I know Christopher has a little bit different philosophy on that, and he'll talk about that in just a little while, I think. But you definitely want to drink a lot. And if you're drinking 6 quarts, 5 quarts a day, it gets a little monotonous. So if you don't have teas, the hot chocolate options, getting that much liquid into you can be a little difficult, at least for me. So these are just options. These are just things to think about. Not necessarily, what you have to eat, of course. And notice the cold start at the bottom there on day 4. If you're leaving the woods in the morning, maybe you're getting all packed up and stuff, that's going to take you quite a bit of time. It might be a good idea just to do a cold start, or just do a hot protein drink with some Jello or something like that. Can be real handy depending on what the temperature is. Make sure you've got good snacks for the whole way out, so you continue to eat, keep your energy up. And for safety, you really should leave the woods with at least one meal that can be eaten, and one meal that can be eaten hot. One meal that can be eaten cold, and one meal that can be eaten hot. So leaving with an extra big bag of gorp in your, good couple handfuls of gorp, and a Mountain House meal in your pack is good for a safety situation, just in case you get stopped, just in case you get turned around, having a little bit of an overnighter. It's better, unplanned overnight, it's better to have some food for that.
One of the things that I like about this slide and the last slide, Aaron, is that it really points out, as you said, that this is not an instruction. It's not like we're saying, go get miso soup if miso soup isn't something you normally eat. What we're pointing out here is that there are really these 3 ways that you can go about building your menu for your trip. And whether you want to get into dehydrating and really extend your trip, like you talked about, planning and thinking about your trip and doing things to prepare for your trip in the days ahead and the weeks ahead of time, that's one exciting way to go about it. There's like, I'm just going to pay and not think about it and go the Mountain House or the commercial option route. And then really like grocery shopping. The things that you can find in your grocery store can, if you think about the types of things that you're looking for, you can really get what you're looking for straight off the grocery shelf and put it together very economically. So that's just an important thing to keep in mind as we're all, we have to make choices about, where do we invest as we get into this sports, and some of the equipment for this stuff is expensive. And if you want to save some money on your food, doing it at the grocery store is absolutely a great way to go, particularly if you're getting things that your body is comfortable eating already, because I'm sure that none of us eat these commercial dehydrated foods at home on a regular basis, and they can tax you pretty well.
That puck that comes in the chicken and mashed potatoes, though, that thing's awesome.
So there's we'll just leave this slide up here. These are some recommendations for further reading. So Mountaineering: The Freedom of the Hills is sort of the classic Bible for getting out. And it's got some information about food in there. Knowles has a great book, Knowles Cookery. There's a number of options. We'll leave those up here. So if you want to take down any of those links as we continue to talk just a little bit about how we, our personal choices. We gave you the sort of the framework for how we think about this stuff, but we all gonna go make our own personal choices as we do this. So, we started by talking about the spark, the liquid, the water, and Aaron mentioned that I think about things a little bit differently. He talked about 2 liters in camp and 2 liters on the trip while you're hiking, and 2 liters when you get back to camp. And that gets them to 6 liters. That's basically what we were talking about, 2 to 5 liters a day. 6 liters, that's great. I'm not that different from that. I like to slam liquid first thing in the morning too. So, we like to boil water at night, and we're going to put water into our Nalgene bottles and take those into our sleeping bags to have a hot water bottle to keep our sleeping bag warm at night while the log's in our stomach. We've got a hot water bottle with us, and that's going to help keep us warm in our sleeping bags. Those are great to drink in the morning. So you've got water that's not going to be really hot anymore, but it's definitely going to be room temperature. So you get up in the morning, you just drink a liter of water right away. And then you've got another one that you drink while you're having breakfast. And as Aaron mentioned, making that interesting. I like ginger tea. So having a little ginger and a lot of honey. I like to I bring basically a container of honey, and I will plan on putting that in my liquid throughout the course of the trip, rather than putting in, some people use the the powders and the things that you might get at a running store for extra electrolytes or whatnot. I like just honey. Makes the liquid interesting. So for me, 2 liters in camp, one first thing and one while I'm having breakfast is great. A couple liters for our hike, definitely good to have with you. I usually wind up not quite getting through all of that, but it's a definitely take 2 liters with you. And then I want to drink everything I can as soon as I get back to camp. So as soon as I'm back in camp, I'm going to have another liter of water, my 5th liter of water. Maybe I'll have a little bit more with dinner, but by the time I'm having dinner, I'm done drinking liquid, because I want to not have to get up and pee in the middle of the night. That's the way I do it. Front load the liquids, definitely a lot in the morning, good amount while you're hiking. And then as soon as you're back to camp, you're going to have a little bit, but you're pretty much done. And as long as you're not dehydrated, you're going to sort of just make it through the night just fine. That's the way I do the liquids. Love the ginger tea and honey. I bring a thermos with me, so it's nice to have hot liquids on the trail as well. So a Nalgene in a neoprene sleeve so that it won't freeze on the trail, and a thermos. I like on my hikes, I like chocolate covered almonds. It's just a personal thing that I enjoy, but if you think back to that framework, it's nice because it has those fast carbohydrates with the sugar and the chocolate, and it's got a little bit of protein and a little bit of fat in the almonds. And so that's a nice snack to be going. But as Aaron mentioned, you don't just want one thing, you want to have some options. I also like to bring cubed up salami and cheese in little Ziploc baggies with me while I'm hiking as well. So that's sort of my go-to trio of things that I eat, but some people like granola a lot. There's all sorts of options.
One of the things that I find helpful in getting all that liquid down is I like hot Gatorade. It's a bit like the hot Jello, but especially the red Gatorade hot. That's one of my favorites. So that's like my go-to when you first pull into camp after the long day. Nice quart of warm Gatorade with the first boil of water. Definitely helps. Gives you that sugar, those electrolytes. Helps you balance out your hydration, and then allows you to move along with the chores of the evening also.
Nice.
There was a question, we got one question up so far about plastic bags, possible failure, chemical release. Now, I'm going to tell you, I'm not a chemist. I don't play one on TV. I don't know what the freezer bags may be releasing, but I don't eat out of them very often in my life. So in the field, I do use branded freezer bags, and I've never had a branded freezer bag fail in the field. As long as you treat your food correctly, you don't have really pokey pasta that you smash in your pack, that kind of stuff. I have not had a failure. I do bring some extra bags. As far as the chemical release, I kind of turn my head for that one. I've definitely wondered about that myself. I don't know what the potential chemical leachings would be. So there's a question about water for multi-day trips. It's not a silly question at all. Snow is a total pain to try to get your water out of. Snow is first, it's dirty. Second, it's you need a lot of it to make water. And third, you end up needing primer water to make the actual snow itself. You can't just simply boil off water directly, boil off snow directly and make it work well. So you have to have a little bit of water to get the snow started. It's also very easy to gum up the works with your stove, because you can get the snow on the outside of the pot. So if you're not real careful with that, it can melt into the stove and end up flooding your stove. So that's that's something that you kind of have to worry about when you plan where you're going to camp. You usually plan in places that hopefully has flowing water. That's what we do for our teaching sessions. And then you'll go to the water and you'll use your ice axe, chip a really nice hole in there, and we use the vinyl buckets to get the water out. Handy thing is, if you bury the bucket in the snow, it stays at 32 degrees and only gets a small bit of ice on the top of it. And with a couple of buckets, you can take care of 8 people pretty easily.
Another question in there, how do you keep honey from freezing? Great, that would be a problem. And I don't have any magical trick for that, but what I do is keep the honey container in a freezer bag. I often put it in 2 freezer bags so that I'm not worried about anything breaking. And I would just keep that with me, whether that's in my sleeping bag overnight, and then then it'll be viscous enough to get a good glob of it into your thermos in the morning, and that's basically how I'm using my honey. So I'm just using it to put into the thermos in the morning.
And some places like Wegmans have them in small packets, which are actually really handy for using and backpacking. I wouldn't recommend you go there and put a couple in your pocket or anything like that. That wouldn't be right.
Would never recommend something like that. Yes, question about filtering water, if not boiling for cooking, but just for drinking. We're generally going to boil everything that we're drinking out there. So a filter is not something that I'm normally carrying on a winter trip.
Well, filters,
I might have,
if you freeze a filter, the filter's broken at that point, because they're measured in microns, and the water inside the filter, if that freezes, it's broken.
Yeah. So you don't even want to put water into a filter if you can't keep it warm, is what you're saying there. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even if it's, if it's snow, it's going to have to be put on a stove. And if it's coming out of a pond or a creek, we're going to boil it. You're generally going to want all of our liquid warm. It's pretty easy to do.
Hey guys, Jeremy here. Sorry for being late. I'm the current director of Winter Mountaineering School. There's a handful of questions starting to queue up in the Q&A section, so I'm going to rapid fire through them.
Nice.
First one is from Jesse. Besides avoiding caffeine, foods to include / avoid to help with sleeping. I often fail to sleep well in the backcountry, no matter how comfortable my sleep system is.
So I actually have my my hiker cocktail that I take, and that is
wait, I've never heard of this, Aaron.
Me too. It's whiskey.
Well, whiskey not in the woods in the winter, but I typically will take 2 ibuprofens and 5 milligrams of melatonin in the woods, especially the first night, because I have a hard time sleeping the first night that I'm in the backcountry. I'm just all excited. I've got all my stuff set up. So you have to figure out a way that helps you sleep, and maybe deal with some of the aches and pains that you're dealing with at least in my advanced age.
Sometimes I bring this is not nowhere near as fun as something called a hiker cocktail, but sometimes I bring like a payday candy bar into my sleeping bag at night, because if I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm cold, something to throw in my stomach, get me a little bit warm, and I go right back to sleep.
Next one is actually a recommendation, which I've never heard of. Stasher silicone bags as a
Yeah, I'm gonna have to check that out.
freezer bags. I've never heard of that, so I'm kind of intrigued. Christopher,
I am too.
Nice.
Have
This
you heard of
sounds
that?
reusable.
It does, and silicone works. You can do like 400 degrees in silicone. We cook on them at the home, so I'm kind of intrigued by that.
I have to check that out.
Best way to keep water from freezing. You already answered that, kind of, I feel like.
Yeah. Well, so we collect water in like canvas buckets. They're 5 gallon buckets, and they're the collapsible hiking buckets. And then we'll dig a hole and we'll cover the buckets with snow. And because they're inside the snow, it stays around, the 32-degree mark. So it stops from freezing. As far as your water bottles themselves, obviously we don't recommend people use bladders in the winter, because the bladder itself can freeze, and the hose definitely, especially in the Adirondacks, will freeze on you. There are ways of dealing with that, and you can play around with that on day hikes, but having at least 2 heat-proof bottles with you is super important, whether those are thermoses or whether those are Nalgene or the Camelback bottles. Don't use knockoff ones, because the knockoff ones will definitely, when you put boiling water in them, they will turn into a sculpture instead of a water bottle, and you don't want that. That's not a good time. And then keeping the bottles inside of some type of insulation, whether it's a sock or better. There's commercial products, and then there's the heat, the insulation things that you can get at like Home Depot for putting around vents and those kinds of things. There's lots of different DIY things that you can look up, but having some type of insulation around your bottle, and then depending on the temperature and whether you put boiling water in or not, you might even want to put your bottles in upside down, because they freeze from the top down. And if the top is where your top is, you can't open the bottle, even if you have water that's in there. But if you have it upside down, you can open the bottle and drink whatever water's not frozen that's in the bottle. So as you approach the slushy section or slushy temperature, you definitely want to turn your bottles upside down.
Any recommendations / thoughts regarding frequency of meals or snacks between breakfast and dinner? This is one of our cardinal rules of winter mountaineering.
Ongoing and constant. Small amounts of different types of food from the time we leave camp until the time we return, and then dinner starts.
The 15-minute rule. Lunch starts 15 minutes after breakfast and finishes 15 minutes before dinner.
What he said.
And you really want to keep them in small containers, and you want to keep them accessible. So little Ziplocs that you can stash in your pockets, because as you take breaks on the trail, or even while you're still walking, you're just going to want to be able to access those things. We're not stopping to have a meal at any point.
Really good one. Surface on which to rest your stove, which I don't know if you guys talked about snow kitchens at all. I didn't hear it, but in the picture that's on the screen right now, folks, you can see what looks like one of our snow kitchens. But beyond that, the stove.
So your stove is going to get hot, and the pot is going to reflect down on the snow. And if you leave it just the way it is, that can definitely be a problem. You want to keep things as light as possible. So you need some flat surface that is available for you to use, that reflects the heat back up. You also want to make sure that you have a work area that is level and at a comfortable height where you can work. The most dangerous part of any backpacking or mountaineering trip is driving to the mountaineering trip or flying in the plane to the mountaineering trip. The next most dangerous thing is you in the kitchen in the backcountry. Those are where injuries happen on adventures typically. So having a good working area where you have a level surface that is at a comfortable height, hopefully, depending on how much snow is available, can be really worth your time to make yourself a little snow kitchen, whether it's just a mound of snow that's a little bit higher and you're sitting down, or whether it's a kitchen height level counter that you've made out of snow, along with your Barco lounger and your couch and your big screen TV that you brought out there. Kidding about the big screen TV, but everything else you can make in the snow. What you want to have is you want to bring something that gives you a flat surface that reflects back. The easiest thing to do is to use cardboard, duct tape, and heavy duty aluminum foil. So you can wrap that and it becomes a reflective surface, and you can make it, a square 8 inches by 8 inches, 6 inches by 6 inches, whatever feels like it'll work for you, and use that as the base for your stove. The cardboard itself and the duct tape, that stuff can melt. The whole thing isn't going to weigh very much, but it'll definitely hold up to a trip as long as you try to treat it well. Any other things?
Sticking with that. Somebody's asking, what kind of stoves do we recommend?
The same one for everybody in the group. If you're going to bring stoves, you should have
With authority.
Stoves fail. So you don't want to have 3 different kinds of stoves with 3 different kinds of parts, 3 different manuals, and 3 different repair kits. We tend to use whisper lights, standard MSR whisper lights. You can get different kinds. We don't typically use the canister stoves. There are options for using canister stoves in the cold and in the extreme cold, but it gets real wonky. The MSR whisper lights are the tried and true stoves. Definitely fire them before you go on your trip. Make sure you fire it always at home, and make sure it's working. But if you're bringing stoves, definitely have one more stove than you expect to need, and definitely fire it before the trip, and definitely have the repair kit at least for one of them. So having the same brand and type is important. Go ahead.
In canister stoves, so the one thing he didn't really specify specifically is white gas is the fuel source that we're using. So all the MSR whisper lights, XKTs, all those run off of white gas. The canister stoves, just stay away from it in the wintertime. I've done it once out of not wanting to, and we had 2 cold breakfasts on that trip because the stove wouldn't light in the morning. It sucked. Stove boiling. Yep, there we go. Same question. All right, next one is SteriPens. Yeah. Thoughts on SteriPens in the winter?
So SteriPens run on batteries, and batteries in the winter aren't necessarily a great thing to necessarily count on. SteriPens in the Adirondacks are a little bit. It's something that you can run into problems with. What a SteriPen does is it uses light to sterilize the water. The water in the Adirondacks has a lot of tannins in it, and the tannins are actual particles inside the water. Particles create shadows for light. Anything behind the shadow can actually not be killed by the SteriPen. So if you have a lot of particulates, a lot of tannins in your water, you can actually have the water not get fully sterilized. It only takes a little bit of Giardia or Cystispora to cause you a significant problem. So we boil for 2 minutes. It's totally adequate, kills everything that's in there. And, the SteriPen itself, batteries and potential issues with it not getting everything that's in the water potentially.
And then another really good one. How much fuel do you bring for the stove?
So a lot of that depends on the trip. We try to use 10 ounces per student per day. per stove. I believe that's the formula, right?
10 ounces per student per day.
Yes.
Not
Oh, not per, I'm sorry, not per
if we're
stove.
running. So how we do it is we bring 3 stoves for 8 people, and we're usually running 2 with the other as the backup emergency stove. So when Aaron's saying 10 ounces per person per day, every person on a 3-person trip is bringing 30 ounces of fuel. Or on a 3-day trip, every person is bringing 30 ounces of fuel. That can obviously vary wildly if you're out west, like in the Sierras where I'm at. The snow, there's no water source in the winter. It's all buried under 30 feet of snow, so you have to melt snow. But our snow is more dense. Rockies, same thing. Their snowpack is 10 feet deep, and all their water's buried below it, so you have to melt snow. But their snow is much drier, so it comes over time of doing more trips in more places, knowing what your water source is going to be, how much fuel you're going to need per person per day.
Yeah, and if you're planning on using a creek as your water source, you know, that water is all wet at the same level. It's 100% hydrated. If you're working on snow can be, you know, a powder that doesn't consolidate all the way to slush, almost to a water consistency to it. So how much fuel do you need to melt snow if it's powder? A lot. How much do you need if you're melting slush? Less.
We prefer to call it Sierra cement out here, please.
Okay.
But that just speaks to the idea of each student bringing their own bottle of 30 ounces of white gas speaks to that idea of interoperability, the same kind of stoves, the same kind of fuel, the same kind of fuel bottles, so that, you know, Aaron's got his stove going and his fuel bottle is spent, and I can just come in with my fuel bottle. I didn't bring an extra stove, but I did bring the fuel bottle, and it just goes right into his stove system.
Having that interoperability and interchangeability is super important for, you know, the stove is your main source of heat that you're going to get, because that's how you're going to get your calories.
Beyond our opinion about MSR stoves, when you show up at any major mountaineering objective, everyone's got an MSR stove. It's the industry standard. There's a couple other options, but everybody uses an MSR stove with MSR fuel bottles and MSR pumps, and it's just perfect. So they've been making the stoves the exact same way for 40 years, and nothing has changed because it doesn't need to. So.
Do learn how to fire them properly, though, because they can be exciting if you're not doing them correctly.
That's a fair statement.
Lots of practice.
I think we've hit everybody's questions. That was a lot of good questions. Anybody else have anything? Any other questions, folks?
9 on the money.
Nicely done. Hey, so just to wrap up real quick, sorry for being late. I'm Jeremy Osborne. I'm the current director. This is my last year of directing our program. But thanks for coming to our presentation. And if you guys would like, we would really appreciate it if you go join our Facebook group. 80K Alumni is what it's called. Or I'm sorry, WMS Alumni, Winter Mountaineering School Alumni. You guys have all now officially attended our COVID-19 edition of Winter Mountaineering School. We will be, hopefully next year, we'll hopefully be back in our normal, more traditional program. And we'd love to see some of you guys as students, where you'll hear a version of this presentation and many others, and also get to actually do some of these things in the woods with us, which is kind of the fun part.
Jeremy, just to let everybody know, there's a lot of different options with our program. So we have day hikes that are run out of the lodge, and that's a great introductory program. We also do various other programs where we have a weekend backpacking, and up to almost a full week of the combo program and the advanced, that depending on the year that we do, we spend a week out. So there's lots of different options. You can be new to this, or you could be somebody who has quite a bit of experience. We actually have about 30% of our students are repeat students, and repeat students for many, many years. So you'll see people come back year after year into our program because we're so much fun to hang out with. and it's such a good time.
And drink
If you're
whiskey.
and if you're getting out this year, when you join that Facebook group, share some photos, ask questions. Lots of people on that group that love getting out.
You'll find
also
on
Go to our website too. Winterschool.org.
you'll find on the Winter Mountaineering School, there's a couple of email addresses that are there for gear questions and program questions. Feel free to hit those up. That actually gets forwarded to a number of the instructors. And if you just have questions, if you just have questions, we love to talk about this stuff. That's what we do. So we're happy to help you.
The website is winterschool.org and the Facebook group is WMS alumni. So thanks everybody for coming, and we'll see you in the future, hopefully.
Thanks, everybody. Be safe out there. Nice job, Chris.